Nobody ever listens to me. Nobody ever heard of me. But now everybody in the world knows me because, oh, Deborah, thanks for doing this. Thanks for doing it. And I'm really, in my mind, I'm not doing much, but I'm doing something.
I went to the candidate selection. I was hooked. I was able to ask him questions that concerned me.
You can actually sit opposite a mayoral candidate and ask that candidate questions and have that person have to respond to you, an ordinary citizen.
We really surprised Senator Spano. When we held a town meeting, I think he said 10 people would be there, and instead found a room full of 200 people with Spanish translation occurring in the back. Because it had drawn that kind of interest from people who knew their lives would be changed by this simple act of having the minimum wage raised.
I think a lot of young people across the country are really disenchanted with the political situation where they see two parties that don't really represent the issues that they care about, the policies that they want to see enacted.
It's a party that talks to people and talks based on realities and not abstract notions.
The one thing, like I tell anyone who's willing to listen, if you want to learn how to make a change, if you want to have more involvement on who represents you in the political office, become a Working Family Party member.
Fusion voting allows parties to be about issues and not just about candidates. In fact, what it does is it allows you to actually have a real political party in the old-fashioned sense of the word, where the people who belong to the party can set the platform and the priorities.
I mean, fusion voting is a system by which candidates' names can appear on separate ballot lines, different parties, and people can vote for that candidate on either one of those lines, and then the votes are tallied together to determine the final outcome of the election. And so, in a sense, it gives you a chance to cast a vote that reflects your values without wasting that vote, without putting it towards a spoiler whose votes may cost the election of the better of the two major party candidates.
Here's a way for you to help elect the person who is going to be closest to your self-interest, closest to your pocketbook issues, and send them a message on the issues that you care about, and provide a margin, by which to hold them accountable.
It was a common tactic throughout this country in the 1880s and 1890s. It peaked in 1896 when William Jennings Bryan ran as a fusion populist Democrat candidate, and I think when the banks, the big banks at that time and the big railroads, the big corporate interests saw the power of that tactic, they systematically went from state legislature to state legislature and eliminated the possibility of fusion voting. And it really became something that was more or less limited to New York State. Mississippi and South Carolina and Delaware, in Connecticut, a slightly different system. It's legal in Vermont.
When I mention to my relatives in California what we're doing here, they look at me quizzically. They don't understand what Working Families Party is because a candidate can only run on one line there. Fusion gives us a kind of a power because we can stick to the issues and use our electoral clout with the candidate who will best support our issues.
It totally transforms your relationship with politicians.
The Working Families Party can always point, as it did in congressional elections in this town, assembly races and state senate races, and show that they were the balance of victory for a number of candidates, be it Democrats, or Republicans, or independents. And they can say, look, you won your election by 425 votes, and there were 500 people that voted on the Working Families Party line, and we understand that many of those folks are blue-collar workers who would certainly not have tipped in your direction if not for the fact that we validated you in their eyes.
Having a piece of real estate on the ballot where you can go, I'm a poor person, I'm a woman, I'm a person of color, I need a better job, better schools, better government. If I go there and I vote on that line, that's that message that gets sent. I vote on the Working Families Party line.
It's what the Working Families Party is all about. It gives you a voice in the process.
Well, the Working Families Party played an extraordinary role in Hillary Clinton's election.
One of the reasons that we had started the party was we felt that for a variety of different reasons. A lot of working class voters were drifting away from the Democratic Party, and we felt that by projecting a clear economic justice agenda, we could bring back some of those voters and vote for candidates who, while they may have hesitations about on some level, were the candidates who were most committed to our values in terms of economic justice. And that was really the thrust of our work in the Hillary Clinton campaign. So we were worried about, would auto workers in Cheektowaga, would CWA members in Suffolk County vote for her?
Jim Duncan is one of the state co-chairs of the Working Families Party in New York, and he's from Buffalo, New York, upstate New York, which is a white working class, fairly socially conservative area. So he gave this famous speech at a gathering of hundreds of auto workers, stewards, who are going to go back and convey that message to members. And he said, guys, I just want you to put your guns down long enough to vote for Hillary on the Working Families line, row H. And everybody laughed, and it worked.
In real numbers, Senator Clinton got over 100,000 votes on the Working Families Party line, which was really amazing. I think it's fair to say that it was a major part of our electoral victory, and increasingly is a major part of all important elections in New York State.
El resultado fue perfecto porque nosotros pudimos expandir nuestro voto en el estado un 20 o 30%, y ese porcentaje se ha quedado con nosotros. O sea, tenemos gente en diferentes partes del estado que votan en nuestra línea en todas las elecciones.
From the time that we started the party, raising the minimum wage was our signature issue.
We started in February with a clipboard and a blank piece of paper, knocking on doors, and I was just overwhelmed by the number of people who would come to the door, stand there, sometimes barefoot, sometimes in their slippers, and immediately acknowledge that nobody could live on $5.15 an hour, and sure, I'll write a letter to Senator Spano, and stand there with the wind blowing on them and write those letters right then and there.
We finally raised the level of our campaign enough that we were able to push not only a majority of the Senate to sponsor the bill, but we actually were able to bring it to the floor for a vote.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
And so they passed it overwhelmingly. What was the governor going to do? And he vetoed it. And then the question was, would the state Senate overrule their own Republican governor?
True to their promise, right? They went in December and voted for it, override of their own governor.
El partido ejerció su poder para asegurar de que 700,000 trabajadores que estaban ganando $5.15 la hora ganaran en 2 años a $7.15 la hora. O sea, es un ejercicio del poder para mejorar las condiciones de los trabajadores y de la clase trabajadora en el estado de Nueva York.
Hey, I kind of help him make history, because I know, like, when I go to my Democratic clubs, they were like, some people say you will never get the Republicans to vote to increase the minimum wage. And then, when it happened, it was like, see, people could make things happen.
The Working Families Party, actually here in Albany, played a significant role in the election of a district attorney, focused around a campaign for the reform of the Rockefeller drug laws.
The draconian laws in which on 1/8 of a gram of a drug, one could face life in prison.
That are basically universally understood to be counterproductive, wasteful, racist.
He was David taking on Goliath. The Goliath being the traditionally strong and well-financed Democratic organization here in Albany County.
No one runs a field operation the way that we do. No one.
Anytime that a candidate wants to get elected to office, you're going to want to get a file of all the registered voters in the area to do outreach, to do targeting.
When election night came, we were all thrilled that David Soares had pulled off a huge upset victory against his former boss, the Democratic incumbent, and then went on to win the general, sending shock waves across the state.
What Soares did, and what the WFP did underneath him, was turn an election into a referendum on an issue.
After, a 20-year deadlock in the legislature, the fact that David Soares won with working family support almost immediately, in political terms, within the same season, you could say, led to a dramatic change in the Rockefeller drug laws.
One day, thousands of people took a position
and we had our legislators listen, and then they took a position. This is how it's supposed to work.
I have a tremendous amount of admiration for what they've done, and I like to think that I'm one of the few people who saw it coming and screamed about it.
You, as the Working Families Party, what you are capturing in terms of reviving the notion that politics can be about ideas, that politics can be about representing those who do not have voice, politics can be about speaking on behalf of those who will not otherwise be represented in the halls of Albany or in Washington, is critically important.
The party is mobilizing around issues that matter to them.
Living wage legislation.
Education. Preserving Social Security.
There are 5 Walmarts in Suffolk County.
Close to 1 million people in this town who are struggling without health insurance.
Affordable housing.
Minimum wage.
More unions.
If we had 7 or 8 or 9 working families parties in important states around the country, well, that would be a very powerful way for common sense progressivism to advance.
What we need is to have our own party that has our own issues out front, and people can choose to vote on those, and the only way that's going to work is if we have fusion voting legalized in our state.
My vision is to build a working family club in Central Harlem.
Working Families Party governor, take back the Senate, reform the Assembly.
Healthy, vibrant Working Families Party chapters in many red states.
A third of the House of Representatives, or a third of the Senate, and maybe the White House. That would probably be where I would like to.
If they were given a chance, really straight across the board, I mean, from every little city and you know, from across the United States, if they were given a fair chance like that, it could happen. It can be a wonderful world again.